Hi, my name is Ella, and I am in the Silver Microcampus group. Microcampus is a program where 11 of my peers and I go on a 4-week trip to Xizhou in Yunnan province. This trip is designed to help us grow and learn about ourselves and the Chinese culture. While staying in Xizhou, we have to study a self-selected topic. I chose to study music. I decided to study an instrument. I chose this because I'm very connected with music, and I play 2 instruments. Although I play 2 instruments, I had not yet had the chance to study Chinese music before now. The instrument that I chose to study is called the Langtuo Sanshi. I found a man that would teach me named Mr. Yang. He was very knowledgeable and was able to show me a lot about the Chinese culture, music, and about the Chinese teaching methods. In my quest to learn a musical instrument, I realized how hard it would be to teach someone how to play. This revelation shaped my final product into what it is now. If I were to teach someone how to play a musical instrument, one would have to consider the history, the instrument itself, and of course, how to play. If I were a teacher, the first topic that I would be covering would be history. I remember that when I first went to Mr. Yang's house, I learned about the general history of Chinese instruments. In order to understand what a big commitment learning a musical instrument is, you first have to study the history of past scholars. Around 8,000 years ago in China, complete music theory and more modern instruments began to appear. In the early Qin dynasty, music first began to flourish. Many more instruments and songs were created just because creating them was fun, or the people of China wanted to remember certain events. Unfortunately, music's honeymoon period would not last long. Around 800 years later, music was denounced as a wasteful pastime, and many instruments, books, and manuscripts about it were destroyed. For music in China, the future was bleak. Not for long, though. In the Zhou dynasty, music gained lots of popularity and even became one of the 4 subjects that a nobleman should study. After this, music became very popular. It even had its own group in the government. After this happy event, music's popularity was rising like a balloon with helium inside of it. Many new foreign instruments were introduced from the West, and string and bow instruments, such as the Langtuo Sanshi, became very popular. Today, musical instruments are very popular, although many musicians, including Mr. Yang, think that music will unfortunately go out of popularity with the younger generations. Another factor of being able to play an instrument, and play an instrument well, is the instrument itself. This may not sound very interesting, but in reality, it is very important. I know that when I first saw the Langtuo Sanshi, I was awestruck. I was awestruck because it is a much different instrument than the ones I was used to. I am used to playing and learning about Western instruments, which, by the way, look very different from the instruments here in Xizhou. Part of what left me standing there awestruck was the fact that there was a dragon head on the top of the instrument. This was very interesting to me because I'm very interested in dragons. This was one of many interesting factors about this instrument. Another interesting factor was how the hollow drum on the bottom of the instrument was covered in snakeskin. As I went around and saw various antique dealers, I realized that there had to be a story behind all of these unique and interesting designs. Once I looked into it a little more, I realized that there was a lot of history and symbolism behind these instruments. One of the most interesting pieces I found was a 3-string banjo-like instrument. It had a dragon head, and when I asked more about it, Mr. Du explained that the dragon head was meant to ward away spirits and protect a family from their dead ancestors coming back to haunt them. The dragon head also symbolizes the emperor. Since the emperor is the leader of a country, and since the dragon head symbolizes him, then the dragon head also would give your family's protection. This protection would supposedly come from the emperor himself, and therefore would grant your family lots of protection. When I started to learn how to play the Langtuo Sanshi, I realized that there are many different teaching methods. One of these teaching methods would be the Western teaching method, in which we learn through books and learn notation and music from our teachers. This method is very common in places like the United States and Canada. In China, though, the teaching system is different. Many people in China learn instruments through teaching themselves. Mr. Yang, one of the most helpful people in my inquiry project, learned through teaching himself an instrument for 8 months. Another way that Chinese people learn music is through passing it on from generation to generation. This system has remained important throughout the ages in China. For example, Mr. Yang has one grandson. His grandson is interested in learning the erhu. Mr. Yang himself also knows the erhu and has therefore said that once his grandson turns 5, he would like to teach him how to play. This method is very important in the Chinese culture because the Chinese do not have notes to learn their music by. This means that the books and manuscripts that are written about music have the fingerings in them for the instruments, but they do not have the notes in them. These two methods are both very interesting to study, and they are both very mainstream teaching methods for the musicians in Xizhou. My project was very fun, and I got to start learning a traditional Chinese instrument. The zhuang-tuo sanshui has many fine qualities, and I hope that I can possibly keep playing it once I get back to Shanghai. Even if I don't get to continue to play it, I will be very satisfied with this trip and with how much I learned. This trip has been an eye-opener for me. I have learned a lot more about the Chinese culture and music than I would have in Shanghai. My topic was music, and I am very pleased with how much knowledge I have gained about the history of music and instruments in China. I would like to thank Mr. Taffel and Miss Mai for setting up this program. I would also like to give a special thanks to Mr. Yang for being willing to teach me a musical instrument.